بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala. Inshallah tabarak ta'ala, we're going to continue in our reading of this book, Al-Muhadhab min Ihya Ulumuddin, which is an abridgment of Imam al-Ghazali's famous book, Revival of the Religious Sciences. And this book is extremely important in terms of learning the religious sciences, not just from an external, outward way, but also an inward reality. In other words, Imam al-Ghazali's works are for the seeker of the hereafter who wants to rectify himself inwardly and outwardly. And even the outward aspects that Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala is going to talk about has an inward secret, right? It's extremely important because the books that deal with the outward are really books of al-fiqh, books of jurisprudence. This book, though it has aspects of al-fiqh in it, it is working with the inward aspect of those outward practical rules. And even the issue where we're at, the issue of al-i'tiqad, the belief, it is al-i'tiqad that leads to al-yaqeen, or as the scholars say, the stations of al-yaqeen. So while we're talking outward, we're constantly working inward. In every aspect of al-ulum al-diniyya, of religious sciences, every aspect, zahiran wa batina, outwardly and inwardly. And when Al-Habib Ahmed bin Zayn al-Habashi mentioned that he was summarizing his book, Al-Risalat al-Jamia wa Tadhkirat al-Nafi'a, or the encompassing epistle, some may know it as, he summarized his book from some of the books of Imam al-Ghazali. And he made a dua that the one who learns these masail from the works of Imam al-Ghazali, نرجو له أن يكون من أهل العلم ظاهرا وباطنا, that he would hope and pray from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that the one who learns these cases and acts according to them would be from the people of knowledge, both outwardly and inwardly. So while we're reading, not only we're getting knowledge outwardly, but make sure there is this process of inward realization happening at the same time. And inshallah, we reached up to section or chapter number 2 in Qawaidul Aqaid, in the foundational principles of the tenets of faith. Bismillah. We're on page 29. Let's begin, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulullah. The author, may Allah have mercy on him, said, 2.2 Step-by-step instruction, arrangement of the degrees of belief.
Here, I would like to give a more literal translation of this. So this section, the title of this section is At-Tadarruju fil Irshadi wa Ta'lim al-I'tiqad. It is developing in stages, step by step, when you're guiding people and teaching them the belief in Islam, tenets of faith. And there's a rule that I want us to keep in mind, because at tadarruj fit ta'aleem, going in stages in teaching is extremely important, which in our time, we don't focus on that enough. Step by step. The scholars, they said, whoever seeks knowledge all at once will miss knowledge in its entirety. Let's put that up. Whoever seeks knowledge all at once will miss knowledge in its entirety. One more time. Whoever seeks knowledge all at once will miss knowledge in its entirety. Knowledge needs to be taken in stages. And a better way for us to think about this is beginner level, intermediate level, advanced level, scholarly level. That's how we should learn. Beginner level, intermediate level, advanced level, scholarly level. And that's in every science among the sciences of Islam. So it's essential that our learning has some form of structure, a systematic structure. So we're going to learn what sciences as a priority, what sciences as secondary sciences that we need to fulfill those, or to understand well those priorities in knowledge that we need, which are recommended knowledges, as we discussed all these things earlier in Kitab al-Ilm, in the book of knowledge. So for us, it is extremely important that we start learning Islam structurally, not all over the place. Each science among the Islamic sciences, we learn them bitadarruj, in stages. Beginner's level, intermediate level, advanced level, scholarly level. And we separate the sciences so you don't mix masail, you don't mix cases. You know, this case is a case of belief. This case is a case of practical rules. This case is a case of spirituality. This case is a case of Quranic science, sciences. This case is a case of hadith sciences. This case is a case of grammar. This case is a case of language. This is the case in Sirah. All of this is a case in spirituality. These are books in these sciences. This is the beginner level book. This is the intermediate level book. This is the advanced level book. These are the scholarly books in every single science. This is extremely, extremely important for us collectively as a community, so that we can know our religion with a level of certainty that this is Dinul Islam. This is the religion of Islam, right? So this is extremely important. And even when we're giving da'wah, when we're teaching others about Islam, we maintain this structure, prioritizing the priorities and adding the secondary matters as needed once the priorities are well established with the people we're trying to reach or educate or teach. This is extremely important. And it takes a level of humbleness for the person to admit, I am a beginner, even in this field. Maybe I'm advanced here, but a beginner here. Maybe I'm intermediate here and scholarly somewhere else. But each field, know your place so that you would maximize the structure of learning. As some of the learned, they said about this, that a person may be exceptional in one field of study and suffer radical deficiencies in another field of study. A person may be exceptional in this one field of knowledge. They're good, they're scholarly, but in this field, they're almost like a beginner. They suffer from radical deficiencies. Maybe they didn't take this process of stages of learning, and they really only know one part and not another part, and things are built upon other things. There are foundational things you must know, and then you build on them. Sometimes we read books without understanding the foundations of the science of the book we're reading about, right? So we're reading in a certain field of study, but we didn't read the essential books to lay the foundations of that science. Therefore, when we read something, we now, may Allah bless us, inshallah. Okay, so we read, inshallah. I got distracted a little bit. We'll read sometimes things on one level, not realizing the level, and we misunderstand it because we didn't understand the foundations of that thing we're reading prior to reading that advanced level, inshallah. So this is what Imam Ghazali is going to indicate specifically about the creed, about the issue of al-aqidah.
Know that what we have mentioned above about the tenets of faith should be presented to children in their early years in order to be memorized. The meaning of...
So here, Imam al-Ghazali, we talked about before, he talked about in the first chapter some beliefs, talking about the attributes of Allah, talking about, what relates to those attributes of Allah, right? He talked about that. So he said this should be presented to children. This is taken to case in normal Islamic societies where we raise our children. How do we raise them? We teach them the foundations and basics of the belief. But in our case, this also applies to the common people who never had a serious way to learn. Now, let me emphasize this. Please, everyone write this down. This is very important. If you didn't learn a complete book in a particular science, in that science, you are a beginner. And when I say a complete book, with a living teacher who learned that book from a living teacher, all the way back to the author. If you did not learn like that in our Islamic Sunni tradition, you are a beginner. Doesn't matter if you've been a Muslim for 70 years. If you haven't learned a text with a living teacher who explained that text to you, who learned from a living teacher who explained that text to them, you are a beginner. Even if you're Einstein in the level of your intellect. Islamically, in terms of the religious sciences, in terms of how we receive knowledge, you are a beginner. And then, even in that, depending what text you read and learned, going to determine your level, even though you read. So if you only read a beginner's level text, then you are a beginner. If you only read an intermediate level text, then you're an intermediate learner. Do you follow what I mean? And this put us and take it with all love and then do the work. You cannot go to the fifth grade if you didn't start in the kindergarten or first grade or second grade or third grade. They're not just going to elevate you to the fifth grade. And they're definitely not going to elevate you to high school and definitely not college. And for sure, you're not going to be in post grad studies. It's not going to happen. Well, I don't know, sometimes in this country. But if you get my point. So the child in this case is equal to the new Muslim or the common Muslim who hasn't learned properly. Al-Imam Muhammad ibn Sirin, and we repeat this a lot because it's related, as Imam Muslim related in his Sahih, he said, Inna hadha al-ilm deen, fanzuru amman ta'khuduna deenakum. Verily, this knowledge you're learning is the religion, so look well from whom you take your religion, which tells us that our religion is bitalaqi. It's by actually learning from living teachers who learned, and that's how we preserve knowledge and make sure it's transferred properly. Without that, the knowledge always has a question mark. And the recipient of that knowledge is going to have a question mark too. Because what? Did you learn properly? And that's a given, and I'm not talking about how well you learned. That's an entirely different discussion. One is that you heard and you learned, and then how much you understood is another discussion. But at least we started the first level. I actually did the process of sitting and learning and hearing. Now, understanding's an entirely different subject. So when they say child, don't think we out of it. Relation to knowledge, we may be at the level of children that we need to be taught the same way the little child is taught. And trust me, studying, I've had myself that experience, especially studying abroad. Sometimes I started in classes with children, and I wasn't a young adult, but I was an adult nevertheless. And in my class were children. That was my level. And I didn't mind benefiting and learning in that situation. Because two people don't learn, the shy person and the arrogant person. The arrogant and the shy person, they don't learn. Don't be arrogant and don't be shy. Learn, inshallah. Naam.
The meaning of these tenets of faith will become clear to them gradually as they grow older. Memorization of these tenets of faith should come first, then understanding, and then belief, certainty, and assent.
So listen, here it is. The first thing you want to do when you're learning, and please, even if we're old, give it a portion. The first thing you want to know is learning or is memorizing basic texts. That's first thing. When you're learning that book, especially those beginner books, they're small matun, they're small texts, usually 20, 30, 40, at tops, 50 pages. Sometimes they're in poetry, 30 lines, 40 lines, 100 lines, 144 lines, small poems that contain that knowledge. Our tradition and scholars authored these books for the purpose of memorizing. So we should all have in our minds some books we memorize. Most of the stuff that you hear us teach, we memorize it. That's why we can just flow with it, because it's in the mind already. We memorize basic texts that contain that knowledge. And then as our teachers would expound on those texts, and then we would learn different texts, those foundational mutun, those foundational texts that we learned are stuck in the mind. So therefore, we memorize them. And even at the time of memorizing them, sometimes you may not know the details of them. But the material, the core material is in your mind, right? So memorization is an essential part of Islamic learning. The one who does not memorize is never really considered Islamically in our tradition. He didn't memorize anything, so he's not reliable. He should have some things in his mind or her mind, some basic foundational principles, texts should be memorized, right? As they say, knowledge is what is contained in the heart, not in the pages of books. A beautiful story about Sayyidina Imam al-Ghazali. One time he was learning with his teachers. He traveled out and he learned. And he was traveling back in a caravan. And some highway robbers, they invaded his caravan and they took all the people's property. And among those things was his books and notebooks that he was writing his notes from his teachers. So when the robbers took his notebooks, he went to the leader. He said, listen, you can have everything else. Just give me my knowledge back. And the leader of those robbers looked at him like, your knowledge? He said, yeah, I spent time writing in my notebooks. And if you take them, that's my knowledge. And he looked at Imam al-Ghazali and said, what means that if this is your knowledge, then you don't have any. If someone can just take it, you don't have anything. And Imam al-Ghazali made a promise to himself after that I would not learn lessons except that I memorize. And to the point that he memorized so much that he became known as Hujjatul Islam, the proof of Islam. Because if someone can just take your book or you lose your book, then how much do you really learn, right? But if the book is in your heart, you can't take it. You memorized it. So the first level, even with our children and new learners, have them memorize something. But children are much different from adults. They can memorize. They memorize all the rap songs in the world. Change that. Let them memorize some Islamic matun, not just Quran. Yes, I'll first memorize Quran, have as much as possible. But memorize matun, memorize texts in the various sciences. Make sure they memorize. And for us, it's a protection for us as a community. Because when you have these texts in your mind, when someone's all over the place, you'll recognize it. When someone understands and don't, you have a system. You'll know it's a protection. We already have classical texts that have been reviewed, tried, tested, conveyed for hundreds of years. Memorize those texts. It's been protecting Muslims for centuries and generations. It will protect us too, inshallah ta'ala. Now, then, after memorizing, what comes next? Understanding. So at the first level, don't worry about how much you're understanding. Your first level of reading is getting the material and trying to preserve as much as possible by memory. As a substitute for memory, because we're old, and as my teacher would say, y'all got all these devices and all these things in your brain, and your brain is fried. So what you need to do is constant repetition. So if you have a small text, you read it 100 times. Not just 3, we talking about as learning, I'm talking about reading like 100 times. That book is read 100 times. So therefore, even though you didn't memorize it, after reading it so much, those cases will stick. It will be as if you memorized it, right? So the advice for that is never go nowhere and you don't have a small text with you. I'll give you an example. So here's my bag I carry with me, right? I got a mess going on here. So this is my bag. If I open my bag, This is the front part. Don't worry about it. I got a lot of stuff. You'll notice I got small mutun. I got a bunch of small books, different things. I don't go anywhere without them. I open up another part. I got other small texts, right? I open the other part. I got more small text. Right? I'm always memorizing something. Right? That's how we were taught. Everywhere you go, you don't need big books. They're little small mutun. You can memorize. So whatever science you're reading in, you have a small text, you're reading. You stop, you're sitting there instead of talky, ready, right? You're sitting around, you're doing nothing, you're waiting for an appointment. Read. You're on your break, read. You follow? Do you follow what I mean? This is what we need to be like. And you're going to be reading in different things. So why you have so many? Because this one's in Arabic language, this one's in Sirah, this one's in fiqh, this is in Aqidah, this is in Hadith, this is in, different stuff. They're in different sciences, right? But our tradition has books like that in everything. So anything you want to learn, there's some small beginner text to memorize, right? And as you do that, you'll build up. We have to make habits of study. Seriously. We have to take learning serious. And these are tried and proven methods that's been done for 1,000 years or more, even more than that, right? Get serious, right? And start at your level. This, right? We should take them serious. MashaAllah. Now, go ahead. So what after understanding, then what's going to happen? Then you're going to have strong belief, firm conviction, because now this is several layers of things being settled. So the first time you study, don't worry about how much you understand, how much you preserve. Then understanding. And once you understanding, then things become embedded in the heart. And then certainty, real faith, unshakable faith, conviction will come. Because now that thing is, you're not trying to figure it out. It's a part of you, right? So there's stages, even in how the levels till you reach the level of certainty, right? And that's what Imam al-Ghazali said. He said, ثُمَّ الْإِتِقَادِ وَالْإِيقَانِ وَالتَّصْدِيقِ بِهِ, right? You're going to first have the conviction, then you'll get certainty and conviction in that thing. That's going to come. But first, memorization, preservation, understanding. Then, the degrees of certainty and conviction, as Al-Habib Muhammad bin Sumait, he said, he was one of the students of Imam Haddad. He said, through repetition comes establishment. Through establishment comes illumination. After illumination, one can travel to Allah. He said, by way of repetition, keep doing it over and over and over again, comes establishment in the heart. That thing, you keep doing it, memorizing, repeating, boom, it sticks in the heart. Once it comes in the heart, that's where you're going to get some understanding. Then, after it's established in the heart, illumination comes. That's a level of certainty. And when you get like that, you travel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with ease.
These tenets of faith are accepted by children without any proofs. Among the bounties that Allah, glory be to Him, bestowed on man in his early years is that
on the heart of man. I want you to say this. He said, right? Among the things, فَمِن فَضْلِ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عَلَى قَلْبِ الْإِنسَانِ, on the heart of the human being. Because these are all heart matters, right? It's inside. It's inside. What's really going on, not just outwardly. على قلب إنسان. Because the affair of Imam al-Ghazali is surrounded around the hearts. Allahu Akbar. The scholars, they said, the books of Imam al-Ghazali are about or directed to the hearts from the side of divine unveiling from Allah. Allahu Akbar. That is so beautiful, right? The books of Imam al-Ghazali, Ihya is one of them. They're directed to the hearts. How does he direct them to the hearts? By way of divine unveiling from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And that's how we learn. That's the books of Imam Ghazali. So it's al-kashf min Allah ala al-qulub. Allah unveiling secrets in the heart, and Imam Ghazali is penetrating them with knowledge. Subhanallah. That's a secret in al-kutub al-Ghazaliyah, in the books of Imam al-Ghazali. It's a secret, right? And the people who have a sharp perception for religious knowledge are infatuated with the books of Imam al-Ghazali, right? To the point they made the Ihya a weird, maybe I'll give you this word. A weird is a series of devotions that you do regularly at specific times, right? And it could be various things. It could be dhikr, it could be reciting the Quran, it could be prayers, it could be so many things, right? But some of the great scholars, especially of the family of Asada al-Ba'alawi, right? They made reading the Ihya a weird for themselves. In other words, the Ihya is divided into 4 quarters. The quarter of acts of worship, the quarter of customary practices, the quarter of ruinous characteristics, the quarter of saving characteristics. Each quarter is divided into 10 books. So that means 40 books. Every day, they would complete the reading of 1 book. 1 book, 2 book, 3 book. Every 40 days, they would complete the Ihya and start over. With a wir of Quran, that every day they would do a minimum of a juz of Quran, right? So they're doing the juz of Quran. They're reading in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They're reading in the Ihya as a weird. And then they're starting the new, right? And this is how they reach spiritual excellence. You know, in these works, there is so much benefit. Insha'Allah, tabarak ta'ala. May Allah give us a taste, right? There are things happening just from us doing what we're doing from the spiritual side. You know, just mentioning these great imams who are among us salihun, among the pious people, as the scholar says, in the dhikr salihin tatanazzal rahamat, that as the pious, when you mention them, the mercies of Allah pour down, they descend with abundance, just mentioning them. And that in itself is a great benefit. Now,
These tenets of faith are accepted by children without any proofs. Among the bounties that Allah, glory be to him, bestowed on the heart of man in his early years is that he opened his heart to faith without the need of proof or demonstration. How could he
so
deny?
there's no need for evidence. And this is real Iman, that you don't need a proof or evidence for everything. You need to develop certainty. So you start teaching certainty at a base level till it becomes a reality. Till it becomes like Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib said, if the veil was removed, I would not increase in certainty, right? If the veil was removed, I would not increase in certainty. In other words, from his raising with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a young boy, he was taught how to surrender to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and to ultimately that became his personage. He became a locus of yaqeen, right? How? By this training of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those unseen matters for him are seen. Subhanallah.
How could he deny these tenets of faith when all the beliefs of the commonality began from sheer instruction and pure imitation?
And here, this is important. The first stage is at-talqeen wa taqleed. That means you have to be willing to follow. We have a problem with following, even when we know we don't know. You need to follow. That's the first stage of learning. Excellent following and emulation. That's the first, you should write this. The first stage of true Islamic learning is excellent emulation and following. That's the first stage. Don't come teaching the teacher. You need to learn. You don't know. How are you going to teach? You go tell the teacher how to teach or how you need to learn. You don't know. If you knew, you wouldn't need the teacher. You don't know. So you need the teacher. So you need to learn how to follow. This is important. And you're worse sometimes. We be worse. Not only we don't know, we don't even know we don't know, which is worse. You don't know. And worse than not knowing is not knowing that you don't know. That's called compounded ignorance, and it's extremely dangerous. رجل لا يدري ولا يدري أنه لا يدري. The person doesn't know and doesn't know he doesn't know. That's a complete veil. That's a complete veil. And one of the great Sufi masters, Sa'ad ibn Abdullah Tustari, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, Allah was never disobeyed with anything more than ignorance. More severe than ignorance, excuse me. Allah was never disobeyed with anything more severe than ignorance. Allah was never disobeyed with anything more severe than ignorance. And it was said to him, do you know anything more severe than ignorance? Do you know anything more severe than ignorance? He said, yes, ignorance of ignorance. Subhanallah. That statement is so powerful for us. He said, Allahu tabaraka wa ta'ala was never disobeyed with anything more severe than ignorance. And it was said to him, do you know of anything more severe than ignorance? He said, yes, ignorance of ignorance. Subhanallah. Let's not be like that. The first thing we learned when we were acquiring the knowledge is the word I don't know is half of the religion. It's okay. Keep saying you don't know until you know. Allahu Akbar. It's fine. Be humble. One time a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khairu khalqillah, the best of the creation of Allah. Sayyidul Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen, the leader and master of the prophets and messengers. Someone came to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, which are the best places? Simple question. Is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? I don't know. I will ask Jibreel. I don't know. I will ask Jibreel. Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Prophet asked Jibreel, which are the best places and the worst places? Jibreel alayhi salam, who's the leader of the Malaika, the angel who's responsible for revelation, he said, I don't know, I will ask my Lord. Jibreel, I don't know, I will ask my Lord. Allah revealed to Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam that the best of places are the masajid, the masjids, and the worst of places are the marketplaces. How did we get that knowledge? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I don't know in its proper place. He was not shy. I am Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I cannot say I don't know. He said, I don't know. I will ask Jibreel alayhi salam. And Jibreel, this honorable angel, this sanctified angel who doesn't disobey Allah in anything, he said, I don't know. I will ask my Lord. Sayyidina Imam Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and I have to stop here, being aware of time, we'll stop here. Mark that part right there. Sayyidina Imam Malik ibn Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, a man came from a distant place and he asked Imam Malik around 40 some odd questions. Imam Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he answered around 6 of them. And to the rest of them, he said, I don't know. That man said, I came from this vast distance with these questions that the people of my time could not answer. And I bring them to you, and you saying you don't know. What I'm going to tell my people when I get back? He said, tell them Imam Malik said, I don't know. Tell them Imam Malik said, I don't know. Imam Dar al-Hijrah, he's the Imam of Medina. No one in the Medina more knowledgeable than him in his time. He's sought after. He said, I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. So, inshallah, let us keep these lessons, inshallah. We will continue tomorrow, inshallah. For those who are in the Philadelphia area, the Black Imams Roundtable will be live in Philadelphia today. I think that's St. Joe's University, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look. That's St. Joe's? Is that the university? Okay, I'm sorry, sister. That beat me up. Okay. Let me give. I said yes, I got you. Yeah. 730 is St. Joe's University, 730 South 43rd Street. So maybe you could support the Riyada. That's a gathering there in Philadelphia, put on by Masjid Mujahideen and their thing. So it is, the event is at St. Joe's. Let me put it, St. Joseph's. And the address is 730 South 43rd Street, Philadelphia, PA 19102. That's the address. And the round table will be from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And they have events all week, so go support them. They have the big sit-down event. They have a sisters gathering, a tea party for the sisters from 2 to 5. It's a day to spend out. They're having, I think tomorrow. Did you say tomorrow? For the kids and the painting and all that thing? Yeah, and tomorrow they have stuff. So they have good events, and we should support each other. And the round table is at 12, then from 6 to 5. No, excuse me. When is it? Then at night, they have a 5 to 9. They have sit down with potential spouses from males and females with their guardians. They get to meet one another. It's, mashallah, something nice and talking. And it's good to have a time to be around Muslims who are doing something positive. But the round table is going to be on marriage, the elephant in the room, all of the controversial issues around marriage, surrounding marriage, and how to go about navigating those challenges. That will be the subject of the round table at this event. So this is today from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. Myself, Imam Naeem, and Imam Fahim, and other imams. There are many imams. We were there last night for a panel discussion, and it went very, very well. It was very engaging, and I'm looking forward, inshallah, to today. So barakallahu bikum. May Allah reward you, inshallah. Hopefully we'll see some of you in Philadelphia if you can make it. There is a small fee, but not much. It's not that high for the event. Yeah, it's very small. It's not that much. I forget what it is, but it's not even. I don't even think it's $50. It's very small. But if you can make it, that would be great. And we support people trying to do good things, inshallah. Barakallahu bikum wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow at 7, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.